High blood pressure. Wow, it seems like half the world is suffering from high blood pressure. At least half the United States has an elevated blood pressure, or they call hypertension, right? My name is Jim Reynolds, and this is Lynette Holm. I am the director for Ultimate Mission, and what we do is we train missionaries all over the world to do public health work, to go into villages and communities, and to just try to help people with whatever health issues they have. One of the things we do is we give them a blood pressure cuff and stethoscope because it is very important to know what the blood pressure is. Now, Lynette is a registered nurse who's been a nurse for over 50 years. So we've got some questions to ask Lynette, and we're going to have her teach us how to give a blood pressure and why it's important. So Lynette, why is it important to know what your blood pressure is?
Well, you could have a high blood pressure. It could be an indication of heart disease. There's sometimes a person is very excited and upset and their blood pressure will go up. And usually it has to do with the blood vessel though, and it means that the blood vessel is not elastic anymore. When you're young, your blood vessels, every time the heart beats, they expand just a little bit and they come back in. And as people eat diets that are high in fat and sugars and things like that, we start developing a layer of cholesterol going through the blood vessels.
Oh.
And then gradually the blood vessels get to be very hard. And then when the heart beats, there isn't that ability to expand and contract with the heartbeat that there was when you were younger, and it will just stay high.
Oh, okay. So then your
your
pressure is high because it's going through a smaller hole.
And it's a pipe type thing instead of something that can move back and forth.
Ah, okay. So you just think about your hose, and if you put one of those ends on it that it goes down, all of a sudden you can squirt it a long ways because that's because the pressure's high.
Yeah.
So that's what your blood's doing right there, and it's not a good thing because it should be nice and steady. And okay, well, so that is some of the problems with high blood pressure. But what does it do to our bodies when we have high blood pressure? What does it do to our internal organs?
It's very damaging, especially to the kidneys and damaging to the heart. It's just damaging to all of our internal organs, even our eyes. A lot of times a doctor will look into your eye with one of these little slit lamps, and he will look at the back of your eye and see what the condition is of the arteries in the back of your eye, and he can see that you have a problem. Maybe diabetes is starting up, or maybe you have heart disease. He can probably see that before anybody else.
Wow. Okay. And so your blood pressure makes a big difference in your eyes and your liver and your kidneys, everywhere. And blood pressure. Now you can't feel when you have high blood pressure, can you?
No, not really. Usually you're kind of surprised when somebody checks it and they find that it's high. But I wanted to explain just a little bit about what happens when, why it is that we can measure a blood pressure. And usually you're aware that there are two readings. There's a high reading, which is the systolic blood pressure, and then there's a lower reading, which is called the diastolic. And it's usually written as, like 120 over 80 is considered a normal blood pressure. So usually you'll see it written as two numbers with a line between them. And so, or it might be 150 over 120. Now that would be a really dangerous blood pressure. So, and then there can be, on the low end too, maybe it's 80 over 40. I've seen the whole range of blood pressures all over the scale in my lifetime.
So the high number is, well, the low numbers are resting blood pressure, right?
Yeah. So what happens, and I'm going to do this in a minute, is put this on your arm, and we're going to see what the high reading is, and that is when I'm going to pump this up so that even the artery, the blood from the artery can no longer flow in your arm.
Okay.
And then I'm going to release it. And that second that the first amount of blood, the pressure from your heart, can push that blood through that blood vessel that has been constricted, that's going to be the top reading. That's the systolic reading.
Okay.
And then as it gets back to normal, it will stop making a sound. If you just put this on your arm and you don't pump it up at all, you won't hear anything. So that is the lower reading, and that's when the heart is at rest. So the diastolic is when the heart is beating and when it's pushing the blood out.
The systolic is when the heart is beating, yes.
Yes, and then the diastolic is when it is at rest.
Oh, okay. So the systolic is when, boom, and that heart goes.
Yes.
Okay, and the diastolic is when the heart is, at rest.
You know, the only way I learned how to memorize that as a nursing student, I just have to tell you, is that usually you think of things in alphabetical order, and it would be the diastolic over the systolic. And I thought, you know, blood pressures are just weird. They're the opposite.
No,
so it's the systolic is over the diastolic.
There you go. Yeah. Okay, well, very good. So how do you take a blood pressure?
Okay, so first of all, you need to prepare the person.
Okay.
And it's best if they're sitting down.
Okay, and I'm not sitting for this
I'm
one,
going to
but
pretend
we're
you're
going to
sitting.
pretend I'm sitting.
Okay, and you want them to rest for a few minutes. Now, you know, in a perfect world, 15 minutes would be nice, but you know, we're lucky if we can get 5 minutes.
Right.
So it would be nice if you could be resting for 5 minutes, and your feet should be on the floor.
Okay.
And you should be just sitting there, breathing normally, and you should, and the room where you're doing this blood pressure should be quiet.
Ah, yeah, so you can hear well.
Well, but also you don't want a lot of talking. You don't want that person's phone to be ringing. All of a sudden they're going to say, oh, that's my phone.
Right.
And then they're going to get all excited and their blood pressure is going to go up instead of staying at a normal range.
Yeah.
And
so you were telling me something earlier today while we were off camera about how you would tell people to pretend they're at the ocean and just kind of visualize the ocean water and the breezes and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, actually, when you think of the ocean and the waves, it's kind of like the blood pressure. The wave goes up and then it goes down. And just think about something really calm, like the ocean or whatever is calming to you. Think of that and try to get a normal blood pressure, because we don't want to get readings that are abnormal. I mean, if you just came running in and I checked your blood pressure, what good is that? That's showing what you are when things are, when you're anxious or when you're having physical activity. You want to do it when somebody's resting.
Yeah. And you would probably want to, if you want to get a really good idea of what your blood pressure is, probably take it 2 or 3 times in a week, and maybe take it in the evening before you go to bed, or in the morning right when you wake up, and try to take it at the same time, and then get an average of all those different blood pressures. And that's what you average, because blood pressure, if I understand it right, goes up and down all the time.
It's always moving. It's never, even if I were to check it now and check it again in 5 minutes, it's going to be different.
It's going to be different, right.
So sometimes people want to check their blood pressure with this blood pressure cuff, and then they may say, oh, now I want to check and see what this one says.
Right.
You know, it's just not necessarily going to be accurate because it's always changing.
Right. So if we're really concerned about it, we want to get an average. So what you're going to be doing then is you'll be putting this blood pressure cuff on my arm, and my blood pressure has been varying from time to time, but let's say it's 130/80 is where it's averaging, so which is a little higher than I want it to be right now. But so when you pump that up, if I'm telling you my top number is 130, how high are you going to pump that blood pressure?
I'm going to pump it up to 150.
Okay.
But I'm going to go at least 20 points higher. But I just want to tell you, all of you probably have had your blood pressure checked, but if you haven't, it's not comfortable.
Right. Yeah.
So you don't want to take too long, and you want to get it down. You want to check it fast. You want to be ready with what you're going to do. But you do need to go higher than what the person says it is.
Right.
And you want to ask them, you know, just like right now he told me that 130 was probably what I was going to expect, and so I know I want to go up to 150.
Yeah, yeah.
And then I want to just tell you about the stethoscope. You know, you always see a nurse with a stethoscope around their neck like this. Well, here's my stethoscope, and these two things do not come straight across. They point a little bit, they should point a little bit out. So they're going to be pointing toward Jim.
Yes.
And then that would be the correct way to have it in my ear. So I'm going to just put this in my ear. And then what I always do is I tap it. And if you tap it and you can't hear it, then there is a problem. Maybe you got it backwards and you need to switch it back. But I can hear it very well, so I'm ready.
And maybe these things, on some of these blood pressure cuffs, these things will turn. So you can use this side or you can use the other side. And I have, when I've taken a blood pressure, had it turned the wrong way. And so when I tapped this, nothing happened. Well, matter of fact, that time I didn't tap it. I tried to take her blood pressure. I thought the lady was dead. So you want to make sure that you tap it, you know that you're on the right place.
Yeah, this side is actually used for listening to the heart. And you've had the doctor listen to your heart possibly before, but just so you know that that does have a purpose. But this is the side that you want to use, the big side.
Okay.
Okay. So the first thing, he's been sitting here resting, but I know Jim very well. I know that he doesn't rest well. Okay, so I'm going to put this on his arm, and I just want to show you that this blood pressure cuff has a range on it here. And so I want to make sure that when I put this on his arm, and it has Velcro, that it goes like that it's going to be within that range. So here we are. So it should be within this range. And you need the Velcro to stick so that it doesn't pop off when you pump it up. So I'm going to just put this on his arm. I put it, another thing you'll notice about this blood pressure cuff is that it says for the left arm and the right arm. There's an artery that comes right about here, and it's on the inside, and you can feel it. So you want to feel that artery, and that is where you're going to put your stethoscope, because that is where you're going to hear it the best. So I'm going to put this on here, and then I'm going to fasten it here, and it's within range. That's a good sign. And this is where I'm going to feel his artery, right in here. We'll just make sure I can feel it. Okay, so we got the artery there.
So, and Lynette's done this so many times that she's put it on just right, because I can feel it's on perfectly. But for those of you that hasn't done this much, you want to be able to stick 2 fingers inside of this once you put it on. So you don't want it too tight, you don't want it too loose. But once you put it on, you just stick a couple fingers up in there, and then you know, okay, this is about right.
Yeah, and you know, it has a, I think it's called a manometer. I can't even say it.
I call it a dial.
Okay, let's say the dial. And you want to put it where you can see it. And so a lot of times it hooks on here, but I'm putting it right here where I can see it because I want to know exactly what it is at the time that I can first hear, where I can first feel the first drop of blood going through. Okay, so now I'm going to pump it up, and I watch that dial, and I'm going to go up to at least 150. Okay, now I'm going to turn it. I have to release this very slowly. Okay, so I actually got 140 over 80.
Oh, I'm running a little high right now.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. Okay, so some of the other things I need to tell you is that again, I went up a little higher. It was a good thing that I went up to at least 150. To just tell you a secret, I suspected it was going to be a little bit higher just because of what we're doing right now. And so I did it up to 160. And then...
These nurses are sneaky.
We are. And then I could just barely, it'll start bouncing. And that's where you know that you are actually, the blood is starting to come right through that vessel. Occasionally, you can't hear it, and you'll have to use that for your reading, but it's not recommended. So as soon as I could see it bouncing, I knew I was soon going to hear it, and then very soon I heard it there, probably even 138, 140, it was very close there, and then at 80, the sound stopped. So that meant that blood vessel was all the way open, the blood was freely going through, and that was the lower reading, and that lower reading was normal.
Yeah.
So that's good. And then you want to make sure that the dial on here is reading correctly. There's a place that says 0, and you just want to make sure that this dial is going through that section. There's just a small little area that is for 0, and it is just barely within that range, so that's good.
So there's a way to adjust these if they become out of calibration, is what she's saying. So the calibration in this particular one has 2 little spots on it that it needs to be within between. It's got a little box actually needs to be in, and so yeah, as long as it's in there, you're good. If not, you need to get a new one or have somebody calibrate this, which is really not that difficult. But
yeah, and even for me, I've been out there before as a nurse, and if it's just a little bit off, say it's up to 5, I might just
add the number.
Exactly. Yeah, I've had to do that
and
before.
I've been out in the field. I've been out in the field and actually had to calibrate these things, and it's not that difficult. So if you need to, when you're out in the field, you just pull this off. There's 2 little holes right here, and there's a spanner wrench, and you just take a spanner wrench and loosen that up, and then you're able to turn this, which will calibrate this. Now, in the United States, I bet they tell nurses never touch this stuff, but when we're out in the field in India and in Africa, we're a long ways away from getting new ones sometimes, so we just calibrate them ourselves. And I was a machinist for 27 years, and I've calibrated things within 10,000ths of an inch. Oops.
Okay, so this is actually the way that you test it. Is
you take that off.
Take it off like that, and then you look at it, because there could be some pressure in there. Now you can put it back.
Oh, okay. Yep. No, very good.
Okay,
yep.
So anyway, that is the blood pressure cuff, and this is the stethoscope. And I will say, if you have a stethoscope and somebody is really having difficulty breathing, you can listen to their lungs as well.
Oh, yes.
With the stethoscope. And if there's normal breathing, it just sounds good. And you might just try it out sometime just because you have this, and listen to somebody who's healthy, listen to their lungs. Usually we listen to 3 places. We listen to them up above, in the middle, and low, right here. And if somebody's having some really unusual signs, that might be, that somebody who's sick, that might be another indication that their lungs are compromised.
So yeah, and if you are getting high blood pressure, and consistent high blood pressure, then you want to start looking at some of the things you can do to get that blood pressure down.
Yeah, because it can cause organ failure.
Yeah, it's a problem. And if you can't get that blood pressure down, you need to see the doctor. If you're consistently over 140 on your systolic number, then you need to go see the doctor and see if they can give you some medications, if that's what they prescribe. But some of the things you can do to get it down naturally would be to eat a plant-based diet. Right. Would help get it down naturally. Drink water, and that's one of the things I should have been doing more of today, is drinking water. Exercise is a good thing to do. If you smoke cigarettes, please stop. Smoking cigarettes is horrible for your heart. You're good, it's a great way to have a heart attack, is to continue to smoke cigarettes.
Yeah, and the same with alcohol.
Alcohol, yeah, too much alcohol, and of course any alcohol at all is dangerous, but too much alcohol will really affect your heart. Too much salt, and there's a lot of things that'll give you high blood pressure, but I tell you what, if you can drink water and you can have a good diet and you can walk
and exercise, yeah.
Yep,
okay,
yep.
You
Get some
it.
walking
Okay.
and exercise in. That's really going to help. But there's a lot more studying you could do when you have a high blood pressure, and we may do, here's one thing you can do. We have done some nutrition videos, and so you can go back and look at some more of the videos that we've done. If you like these videos, go ahead and subscribe to it on that button below. Hit the bell so you can know when our next video will come out. But we have all kinds of other videos that you can watch if you would like to learn about diet and nutrition and try to find out the most healthy way to live and the way to live 100 years. It's possible now if you can stay healthy. So thank you very much for watching this. Lynette, you've got something else.
I'm just going to have the last word.
Of course.
Okay. So if your blood pressure is low, I'm just going to give you 2 things that it could be. It could be dehydration, that you didn't drink the water that you should have, and also anemia. Anemia can cause low blood pressure.
Yes,
so,
yeah.
And what can cause anemia, especially in Africa, can be malaria. So those are some of the things to consider. And again, you'd need medical help.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So if you're running consistently under 100 on your systolic, then you need to go seek medical attention as well. So high blood pressure, low blood pressure, both bad. Right in the middle is where we want to be. 120 over 80, that is optimum.
Yeah, but that's a range, and remember, it's always moving.
It's always moving, yes. Yep. All right. Well, thank you very much. I hope you were able to learn something from Lynette today, and I thank you that you joined us. You have a wonderful day. God bless, and goodbye. We would love for you to be a part of our Ultimate Mission family. Please subscribe to our channel, watch our videos, like and share our videos, donate if you would like. Let's work together to spread the gospel of Jesus Christ to the world.